Anybody want to call?
I don't have his number.
Okay, I do. Calling.
We calling John?
Yeah. Thought I had his number, but
I've got it, I can do it.
kind of stalling for him.
Yeah, kinda.
Notifications are silenced. It's good or bad.
Not sure. Might not get reception in here.
You might have to step out the door.
The store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make all the difference in the world. Is that gonna be ex parte if I do that?
I'll let the door shut.
Okay.
And guys.
It's like being on a boat. You know, phone, text, no Wi-Fi, cell phone.
I got no bars, so, I mean, and everyone gets here, right?
Guess so.
Well, what if somebody's not gonna get here till 6? I don't know which one that guy that was.
John.
No.
No, everybody's able to go.
Twice.
They want to go.
Okay. All right, I'll call this meeting to order at 5:36. We'll first orientation. John, if you want to start?
I will. I'm gonna keep this at the 20,000 foot level, for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to bog down your meeting with bureaucratic stuff. And we can work with the chair, whether that is later, to go over a lot of the stuff in more detail, but I did a couple of things. I made a little faux pas, so when you get to it, item 8 is not on your agenda. But the agenda had been out, and I apologize for that. I screwed up. So just with that, I'm gonna write this down very quickly. The nature of the committee, this is really an ad hoc advisory but it is a town committee, which means it's subject to FOA and town policies, and we'll talk a little bit about FOA down below. In terms of town policies and procedures, meeting notices, we're required by law that this committee post notices of its meeting. The law doesn't exactly say what time frame it is. It says in a manner calculated to be reasonably notice the public, reasonable notice to the public or something to that effect. But in this town, we've traditionally tried to stick with a 5-day rule, which means you need to get it to Hannah, whoever the chair is, or who's ever doing agendas. You need to get it to Hannah so she can get it posted like 6 days before or something like that. And you gotta remember, she's not open on Friday. So if it's, you gotta count, and if it doesn't work out, you need to get her to it by Thursday. And she'll post it and puts it on the listserv, and we'll distribute it and keep a record of it. The remote meetings, we do have a policy that allows for remote meetings. It does ask that you attempt to be in attendance in person, but if you can't because you're not present or other issues, you can chime in. Any votes taken, I'm not gonna go over this policy in detail, but a couple of highlights. Any votes taken need to be done with a either visually or audibly, so it's clear who's voting and who isn't, which way they're voting. The same materials that are available to the committee have to be available to the public if they request it at a remote meeting. Jump to minutes for a minute. You are required to keep minutes. Hannah's going to keep them through tonight until you elect a secretary or appoint someone to take notes, and then she's gonna leave. So hopefully someone will step up and finish. She'll transfer over to whoever that is, what she's done in the beginning here. And purchasing and contracting, anything that's over $400, it's not specifically budgeted for, requires select board approval. And that can be sometimes timing wise a pain in the neck because we don't meet all the time. And you know, we can't approve it by email because that's not allowed. So you gotta kind of think that through. In general, we don't have a real strict purchasing policy, so if you wanna hire an architect and you found someone that you're comfortable with and negotiate with, that would be acceptable. You don't have to go through a formal proposal process. Some grants might require that as we get deeper into this, but the town doesn't. And actually, we're reworking the purchasing policy, or I'm supposed to be, which I haven't got very far. So that's sort of purchasing contracting, for lack of a better word.
Sean, can we maybe get a copy of that sent around to us, just so we can see what it says, so we don't
Sure.
follow it without knowing?
Yeah, Hannah can get it to you.
Thank you.
It's kind of very stale and we have drifted far from it, I guess is what I'm saying, so.
Okay.
And I am planning on getting work done on it, but I wouldn't let it hold you up. Grants also require, prior approval, supposedly by the board of selectmen. It's supposed to be prior. Sometimes that can be an issue too, because there's a quick deadline. And so I guess if you run into that, you know, let Hannah know, we'll see what we can do. We could either call a quick little select board meeting, because you can't have emergency meetings. Or if there's an off ramp, in the grant, doesn't sound really, hi, John. You know, we'll do the best we can to work that through, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind that require. Also, donations require select board approval, even if they're $2. They technically have to be accepted by the select board. Generally, as a rule, if someone writes us a check, you don't cash it, and the select board actually accepts it, and then we have because we also have to keep a record of that, of donations and stuff. So I'm really flying through this.
Can I ask a question about that too, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So folks can donate to this group, it just has to be voted on by the town, and that's different from the other committee, which many grant applications will require having a separate auxiliary committee, but there's nothing that prohibits donations to this committee as well.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, originally, the original idea behind the auxiliary was to set it up so there are grants out there that the municipality is not eligible to receive. So we set up the auxiliary as a way, as a vehicle, for lack of a better word. And some people are not comfortable donating to municipalities, or governmental agencies that have taxing authority, you know, they'd rather donate. And there's also, I haven't run into this personally, but I understand there also can be some personal tax implications related to certain types of instruments that if you donate to the municipality, that you can't get the exemption or the size of the exemption. I personally am not convinced that's true, but several people have told me that, so. I guess that's kind of the highlights. I'm gonna go into forward a little bit, and this can be an issue, like I said, because you're a subcommittee of the town. You are subject to what is known as the Freedom of Access Act. And that really, there's kind of two sides to that. One is the public proceedings side of this. All your meetings are considered public proceedings, and people are allowed to attend. The public is allowed to attend. Anybody from the world is allowed to attend. It should be in a place where it's handicap accessible or ADA accessible. And also, this is a misconception. The public is allowed to attend, but they do not have it, and they're not entitled to speak. Now, in this town, we've had a long tradition of letting people speak. Small town, people chime in all over the place. The one exception to that is if you have on the agenda a public comment section, then you have to allow people to speak. Generally, what we have done in this town is put, if you want to make comments that aren't on the agenda, you can make those comments during that time. And if you, and then we've allowed people to speak as we've discussed different agenda items, and there's been a long tradition of that here. I would encourage you to stick with that if you can, unless you find it burdensome, or cumbersome. Also, the public proceedings have to be properly noticed and minutes have to be taken, which we've talked about. Public documents is the other side of the coin. Oh, in the public proceedings, I'll mention too, you can go into what is known as executive session, but which means the public cannot attend that, but it's for very specific reasons that are outlined in the law. And I really can't see any off the top of my head that would fit this committee. The one possible exception might be is if the committee was looking at trying to purchase some abutting land or something like that. That's the one possible exception I could see.
What if we want to discuss architects or,
No,
terms and stuff, you know?
that doesn't cut it. Yeah, and you're not gonna be hiring employees. That's something that, no, you can't. That doesn't do it.
John,
Yeah,
on the nominating committee, when they're considering people for the auxiliary, they did talk about people's names in executive session.
yeah, but this committee is not gonna be,
Well, they hadn't, it was an offshoot, the nominating.
right, yeah, I guess that is. I guess technically, if you were gonna nominate someone and somebody had objections to that, and those objections could have a negative impact on that person's reputation, then that's possible, possible exception as well, I guess, so.
The current circumstance is moot because we used to have a liaison, so somebody who was here was also on the board.
On the auxiliary.
And we, we lost Sandy, so it's, ideally, we need to pick one of us to fulfill that role.
But that would be great, I think, but that's a decision,
Mm.
that's not a policy, that's not a
Well,
legal decision, that's a
Isn't-
policy issue.
isn't the liaison part of the bylaws of the,
I don't believe so,
No,
just
no,
the select board, just the select board. So, and I'm not, so I don't wanna get ahead of that, but I will say, I think that cross pollination works nicely, and I'd like to see that continue. First, but that's not why I'm here. The other thing that's very important with public documents is, even if it's on your personal computer, it potentially could end up, if there was a court case over some forward request, they could end up subpoenaing your computer. So you can't say, oh, it's on my computer, so it's not a public document. If you send an email to Catherine on your computer that discusses this committee's work, that becomes a public document.
But nothing else on the computer,
Huh?
nothing else on your.
No, but do you want your computer handed over to the court?
No, you can't have it.
For 6 months, why they?
I'm gonna be,
The other thing is, with public documents is the title, the public is entitled to get copies of them or at least review them. And what we really want to avoid is getting someone who gives us a forward request that says, I want a copy of any email in the last 6 years that has anything to do with, because that requires Hannah to spend 24 hours searching emails. Then you gotta go through them and make sure there's nothing in the emails that is not subject, that is not public. So we really like to try to avoid that, and she is our Hannah's new, as everybody knows, but she is our public access officer. So if anybody gets a forward request, any committee member or the chair, I would give it to her and then she can log it in and, because we can do a cost estimate on what it's gonna take to do this. And this is, believe me, this is not out of the realm of possibility of happening. This happens all over the state where people use it. Some people say they use it as a weapon to, you know, just gunk up the wheels. So just bear that in mind. And the other thing is, I do want to go back to public proceeding. I forgot one thing. If 3 or more people on this committee get together and talk about this project, you talk about the Red Sox, or the Celtics, or the Olympics, but if you get together and talk about this project, that's an illegal meeting. And 2 people can do it, because it has to be, so you can make subcommittees of 2. And we had, what we were working on, we had 2 people from this committee and 2 people from the auxiliary that were working on being a grants committee, and that was okay, because there was only 2 people from each of those groups. But so that's something to bear in mind too, and you really should try to avoid extending the meeting in the parking lot after everybody breaks. And you can communicate simple things like, oh, this is an interesting article, you might want to read it. But the second someone fires back and says, oh, I think we should do that, you've kind of crossed the line. And now you're deliberating or recommending or whatever. And certainly the chair can send out emails that say, you know, I've got these 6 dates, please let me know which dates work. Those type of ministerial functions are fine. But once you start having a debate or a conversation via email, you've crossed the line. And you know, where that line is determined on a case-by-case basis, but you know, so just bear that in mind. And then I'm almost done. Any emails, I think I would request, because we're required to keep them for so many number of years as a town. Any emails that you guys send, CC them to Hannah, and then they automatically are kept. And then you don't have to worry about it, because if you have the only email on a certain subject and you destroy it, you just violated the law. So, but if you CC it to Hannah and then delete it, it's okay, because she has it. So again, these is kind of the extreme, but this has been an emotional process, and I can see, you know, potentially some issues around that. So that's really all that I have, other than I want to make sure that everybody got the mission. The selectmen did revisit that. We decided not to change anything in it. We had a lot of comments, but we wanted to get moving and not spend a lot of time on this. That doesn't mean that this committee couldn't come back to the select board with some recommendations to change things. I will point out that the last paragraph is not part of the mission statement. It's just information about what the auxiliary has chosen to do. So several people said that shouldn't be in there, but that's not really part of the mission statement. It's just information provided to you regarding the auxiliary. So with that, do you have any, did I forget anything we wanted to talk about?
Oh, I think you got it. Really fast, I think you got that.
I was gonna say, any questions?
This may be putting the cart a little bit ahead, but if we're aware of someone who would like to donate, what should the check be made out to?
Well, at this point, they could donate it in 2 ways. They could donate it to the town of South Thompson, or they could donate it to the, what's our official name? The library, library and community center.
South Wilmington Library and Community Center.
Auxiliary, right, which is a private nonprofit 501c3. So,
And then my second question is, just so that we're clear, if somebody donates, let's say to the renovation as opposed to the new part of the
Yeah,
facility, how will we be tracking that?
yeah, if anybody wants to put any restrictions on a donation, they should submit a letter or an email along with their donation. Number one, any restrictions. You know, some people may say, I'll donate this, but it's only for bricks and mortar. I don't want to go for planning. I'm just throwing that example up. And then any condition, well, any donation has to be accepted by the select board, but any, in particular, any condition. Some people may say, I'll donate, you know, $100,000 if you get a match. Or something like that, you know what I mean, or up to 100,000 if it's whatever, so any of those conditions, so. And we did have a form, and Hannah will have to track. If we do get conditions like that, Hannah will somehow have to track that, but that's where that form that you and I talked about, we had a form that we were using for the town, but it's kind of moved now, it's because it's not, it needs to be updated if we're gonna continue to use that, and Penny and I were kicking that back and forth, and Hannah. So any other questions, and I do apologize for leaving so quickly, but I might.
Well, with respect to that topic, I mean, we had taken steps to get Little Green Light,
Yeah.
which is a, you know, fundraising software.
Yeah,
So the difficulty with having two pots of money is actually to keep track of, you know, how much the project has and for which purposes. And Little Green Light is specially set up to do that, you know, keep all the restrictions in place and matching versus not matching and restricted and so
Right.
forth.
and we still have it.
Well,
When
yeah.
you say we need to be clear, the auxiliary has
Yeah.
that. And the thought was the auxiliary was gonna let the town use that as well
Yes.
for donations, but that's something we'll have to work through.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why we can't continue to make that work. But in the interim, I think Hannah needs to keep track if we get such things. Oh, obviously, the best donations are, do what you want with it. Any other questions? So whoever gets elected chair, Hannah and I can sit down again and go through this in a lot more detail, because it's really incumbent upon the chair to kind of take care of, you know, the administrative details and then. So I hope people found that helpful. Any other questions? I'm gonna get out of here because my son and daughter-in-law are here from Montenegro, and my wife's brother is here visiting, and we're supposed to be having a dinner at 6 o'clock. So I'm leaving.
Thank you, John.
And Hannah's leaving in a minute, as soon as you, I am curious who gets elected chair, but Hannah can tell me.
You want a text?
What, your fax?
Huh?
Your fax?
No, that was on the table, the one I stabbed myself with, no. See you guys.
Good night.
Bye,
Bye,
John.
John.
Yeah.
Okay. Here I go, yes.
While Hannah's still here, how does the general public get a copy of the mission statement?
I can send it out.
You might send it to the listserv, maybe.
I can send that out in the listserv again.
Let's put it in the minutes. So the minutes are available, it's right there in the minutes.
Yeah, if she, I mean, I can do it earlier than that, it's minutes.
It could be posted on the website as well, under the committee page.
I think we're gonna post it on the website once we figure out what the real mission was, before we just posted something, so. Okay, I am looking for nominations for chair.
I think we need to talk a little bit amongst ourselves.
Maybe do introductions.
Yeah,
I know most of
would
you
be
sort
good.
of now, but
It's a brand new
it's worth
committee.
going around again.
Penny?
I'm Penny Alley, I'm the director of the Library Facilities Committee. I've served many different positions in this town and one career since 82.
I'm John Kofel. I support Penny's efforts. I think the last 5 years have been pretty amazing. what's been accomplished there and, so my wife and I are planning to donate, to the process and I do have considerable experience at, the process, but I'm not local and I don't know the builders or the architects in the area.
Maureen Spencer, I was on the committee before, but had to resign. Now I'm back.
Well,
Thank you.
Lynn Tutel, originally from Maine in this area, went to Guilford Butler, moved back 2.5 years ago and got involved with restoring, getting the building up to a place that it is today. And it's great to be home. Great.
My name is Kevin Bunker. I also went to Guilford Butler, but I've been out of town for many years. I live in Portland now and am involved now. Got some experience in real estate development and design and construction, particularly of historic schools. So I'm here to try to lend a hand to clarify some of that.
I'm Catherine Lamb. I moved here 8 years ago, but you know, I had a house in St. George for 20 years before that. And so I know the area pretty well. And I'm very much interested in our library and community center facility. So that's why I'm here.
I'm Marcia Turner and I have lived here for 22 years. And I also am very interested in maintaining and improving building the library. Everything that goes with it. It's bigger than the library, the community center.
I'm Michael Kalinowski. I have had a vacation shack for about 8 years, but retired from the university professor a couple of years ago, and we built an addition that's insulated and now up here permanently.
We did the same.
I have experience with designing the interior of 2 facilities, but that's it. I'm here to help out as I can.
Welcome. And I'm Candace Smith. I served on the previous facilities committee, working specifically with grants. I said when I signed up that I was here for the duration, whether it was new or refurbished, and this is what the town said, and here I am.
And the chair does have a lot of organizational responsibilities. I mean, it's making agendas, taking notes, etc. And I'm not the best at that, honestly. So I don't know who among us would, you're a librarian, right?
Well, I ran a library, but no, I just truthfully, because of my health, don't want to take on a position that I'd have to resign from.
Okay,
So
I just picked.
yeah, I know you
Just
did.
saying.
I know you did. I saw that face.
Lynn,
Have you thought about it?
I have thought that I thought Kevin would be an amazing chairperson. But I know he's got a lot on his plate already, but I think that it's totally up to him to say no, right?
Well, could you co-chair?
By sure, whatever.
I think I would prefer having somebody who is a resident of the area.
I think if Kevin will consider it, I think the chair leads the meeting and makes the agenda and he would be, certainly has.
Do you
knows the
anticipate your work
process.
schedule to take you away, you know, or are you gonna be available every month?
Well, he hasn't said yes yet.
Yeah, exactly, we're essentially asking questions.
I have reservations, but they're not about that. So I have maybe other reservations if I was asked to chair, which no one has done yet, really. But I have committed to buy my mom and Adrian a lobster roll once a month at
So
that table down there, so that's.
We can work it around
Well,
when you have to buy that.
What I'm saying is I'm kind of committed to driving up here once a month
Okay,
for that.
So could we bribe you with a lobster roll?
Yes, or something other, what's your favorite?
I don't want to. Well, this isn't all about me. I mean, is anyone else, I'd like to hear if there's other people that were interested in being chair, because my general preference is to not be a chair because of the logistical and administrative work that it does take up time. I mean, I can add something to the committee. The main thing that I can add to it is technical skills and ability, and that, yeah, I can run a good meeting and kind of drive it along, but also that isn't, I'm not here to be in charge or lead it really, but, so I'd like to know if other people would want to do it, because I'm not trying to be the chair.
No, I think I should decline being a new member with the this committee, but also a new official resident of the state. I think it would be more prudent to wait a bit. What about Catherine?
well, I have taken other responsibilities before in the committee, so, you know, and I still work. So same thing, my time is trying to use it wisely. And given the administrative requirement of this, I'm not sure I can take that on.
And can you take any more on?
If it's running meeting, coming up with the agenda with assistance, I would be willing to do that. But,
Do we have the ability to have a vice chair and even though it's not in the agenda, can we elect a vice chair and a chair?
Well, we
Good
have that. we have
Because
the
someone has to be
previous-
if the chair is not
Yeah,
here,
we do.
so we
True chair.
sort of.
they had co-chairs in the last, but yeah, I think we can do whatever we want as far as.
I would have, if you wanted me to be involved, again, I don't see the fine, but I'd be more comfortable in a co-chair or vice chair role than grand poobah chair, you know?
Can I say something about Penny? I think it's, especially given the recent history, it's our obligation to protect Penny.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering if she were to be the chair of this committee, given the feeling some people had about the new versus renovated option. I would not want to put her in a seat that was too hot at a time we're trying to move forward as quickly as possible.
I disagree with you because I think the town has said they want us to move forward. And Penny has been involved from the very beginning, so knows everything that's happened.
How do you feel about that, Penny?
I'm in the hot seat no matter where I sit. I just see the chair as someone that gets the agenda in and runs the meeting. I've been to a lot of meetings.
Right.
Keep us on task.
I know the procedures, so.
Right.
All right, all in favor?
Penny is chair.
No,
Ken
no,
is
we have to
co-chair.
do a nomination, right?
Oh,
So let's
yes.
just
Okay,
make a
I
motion.
nominate
I
Penny.
will, okay,
I
well, is there any nomination?
I nominate Penny as our chair and Kevin as our co-chair. Did I get your name right?
Yeah, I'm Kevin.
And I second, that's the definition. Both. I second.
Okay. Any more?
Any discussion?
Yeah.
The motion on the
Discussion,
floor.
we all good?
We're good.
Hearing none,
We all have to vote and say.
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
You're not hooked.
Is that you, Sue?
Yes, it is. I'm at my cousin's house.
Ellen the Kite? I thought it was you. Otherwise, it was a remarkable resemblance.
Okay, so I'll pass it to Penny to finish. She is now chair. And I will leave.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Sticking with me.
Alright. Is it feasible for us to open the store?
Oh, please.
Yeah, that's
Oh, my
what
God.
it is.
So much.
We're gonna do that. Oh, no.
Thank you.
For checking.
Thank you, Hannah. I'll leave it all here and lock the door. I'm good with that. All right, so next on the agenda, and this is one of the reasons I took the chair, is to decide who's going to take the notes and do the minutes. Any volunteers?
I nominate,
I can't do it.
I can't do it.
Sorry.
Catherine,
I'm gonna nominate Candace.
I defer because I have a preference for something else.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing it, so I thought. You've
I
done it
can't.
several times.
Yes, I know, but that not in.
All right.
Well, we see yours.
you do.
I'm typing away.
You would
Oh,
do it?
there you
That'd be
go.
Great.
I'm typing.
Yes, well, bravo then. So somebody nominate this gentleman, please.
John, I nominate John.
I second that.
Okay.
Is that something you're willing to do?
It's something I'm willing to do.
And these don't have to be terribly detailed. These meetings will be recorded and posted to YouTube, so people can go in for clarification at a later date. Basically, what you want to do is capture any actions taken, votes. And I always write that stuff down too, so thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other volunteers? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of John Copeland?
Aye.
59 minutes, thank you. That's the worst part of the thing. Any
John.
adjustments to the agenda?
I do have a question about that. You're allowed to, well, I don't really have an adjustment. Discuss plan of action moving forward. That's pretty broad.
Yeah, Kevin, did you come up with a bullet point list of things you wanted to?
No, I think let's take that in order. And I don't think that's the same as adjustments to the
No.
agenda, so.
No,
So I think we just have to hit the highlights when we get down there and figure that out.
It's another structure for sure.
So we won't change the order. We are now to public comments for items that aren't on the agenda, which is kind of hard to know when we have a broad. But are there any public comments at this time? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. And the next thing is to consider a nomination to the Library Community Center Auxiliary Board of Directors to replace Barbara Wrights, whose term expires August 3rd. And there is one. I thought that John said that this committee, the Facilities Committee, had a nominee and the other nominee was coming from the Select Board.
That's
correct.
Okay, so I'm not sure why this is down here twice, but so I would like to nominate Candace Smith, who has been on the grants joint subcommittee and has done a lot of work researching grants for the Facilities Committee and also as a member of that subcommittee.
I second.
I second. Third.
Any other nominations? And Candace, this is something you're willing to do.
Yes.
All right, well, I think we should vote.
All
Before
those
she changes her mind, all in favor of Candace Smith as our nominee.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, Sue, if you would like to join the committee, this is the facility, I would only voters, but we appreciate your support. So I don't understand why 8 is here. I believe Barbara was the one, whichever one we're supposed to
Yeah.
replace.
Didn't he say that was a mistake? I
Yes.
crossed it out. 'cause he
Yes.
said
Oh, I
it
didn't
wasn't
hear
even-
John,
Yeah,
Okay.
so just move on.
Okay, so discuss the committee's plan of action moving forward. So Kevin,
Yeah, okay, so I have thoughts.
yes,
And I think they're all certainly open for discussion, but as I understand it, our mission is, okay, now what? If it's in 3 words. And so I think the first step is to have everyone, new members, existing members of the committee, refresh themselves with the material that exists now. And so those materials consist of architectural studies and cost estimates are on the town website. There's a structural analysis that's on the town website. There are, I mean, the history of the votes is maybe a little bit less critical to the mission now, but it certainly was informative when I was looking at it. And then I think the other thing that would make sense to review would be some of the materials the auxiliary committee has created, because those materials are certainly representative of a lot of the work that went in and representative of a not unsubstantial set of opinions in town that's important to integrate into our work. So while they weren't necessarily produced by this committee, I think that it would behoove us all to kind of understand the landscape in which we operate, and that's a big part of that landscape. So what I would recommend is by the next meeting, that's everyone's homework, to have reviewed those documents, and whatever the committee, the chair or secretary can do to make those easily available to everyone so we can get at them would be good. And so that we can come to the next meeting ready to sort of discuss where we go from here, and generally, so where we go from here, this is in one sense, this is a real estate development project, even though it's publicly funded and it's a town project, there's certain principles of that are pretty much standard wherever you go. And the one thing I want to talk about a little bit is the iterative nature of investigations of projects like this. So you basically, developing a project like anything else is what you want to do is you want to buy your way down the risk curve. And can I draw on this, or is that?
Sure.
Can't believe I didn't plan on this, but I can't believe I'm doing this, but. So, and I'm left-handed, so I'll try to maybe go.
Left-handed block.
Yeah, so what we've got here is, this is the risk of the project here on the y-axis. And this is time. We're at time 0 right now. And let's just say for a minute that in, 18 months, we want to be at a place where we can say, this is what we want to do and here's how it's going to happen. I'm just grossly oversimplifying. So this is a period of months. And at the beginning of the project, anything can happen. We can decide we don't want to do it. We can decide it's infeasible. We can discover gold or oil in the backyard. There's innumerable things that can go a different way. At month 18, when you've got all the way down to all the contracts have been negotiated, you have a guaranteed price, you have all the approvals you need, you have all the money you need. Construction can go wrong, but there's a lot less that can go wrong. So basically, the more time you have, the risk goes down of things that can change and go wrong. And so the risk starts out here, and the idea is to get the risk down to here. It's never 0, but you're doing something like this. And the vehicle you use to buy your way down the risk curve is money, basically. Money and work, the work of this committee and judicious applications of money. So, an example I always give when I'm explaining this is that we don't want to commission full architectural drawings now, full plans and specs and everything here, because we don't know yet if the soil works. So you want there's a thing in software development, they say fail fast, fail cheap. That's what we try to do with real estate, is fail fast, fail cheap. So you look at the most important things first and check off the boxes as you try to efficiently buy your way down this risk curve by spending more and more money as you go. Now, this isn't quite how it works, because the different committees, the auxiliary committee and this committee has already done a bunch of work. So we don't need to, for example, check title on the property. The first thing you do in any real estate project is check the title and make sure that you own it. Here, it's probably worth a look at that, but presumably we've done it. But I guess the point of all that, I'm sorry if that was pedantic, is to say that we're going to sort of have I'm going to get back up and do one. We're going to have 3 major, I think, rounds of investigation here. And I'm going to call it concept and design development and construction documents. And so the concept is just that. Concept is drawings on a piece of paper, rough floor plans, investigations of, for example, in the existing building, the envelope, the structural report we already have. Just real big picture stuff of here are the big 6 things to get right if we're gonna be able to keep this building in, so that we can get a rough sense of how much they might cost. And here's how big the addition should be to do the things that we wanna do. And given the site constraints and the topo of the site, here's probably where we maybe ought to look at putting it. That's the concept phase. Design, development, and construction drawings are basically just more detailed iterations of the same work, but they cost more money because there's more details to them and more people spend many more hours drawing them. So you don't want to get too far down the road in any of the sub-disciplines, which are like architecture, engineering, those sorts of things. You don't want to let one get ahead of the other. You want to do a real basic review of each before you move on to the next stage. So, I think at this point, when there's general consensus around our mission, that we try to save the building, but come up with an addition that's modern, it's nice, that brings people together, that serves some of the functions that we don't think the existing building can do particularly well, if at all. That kind of gives us an idea that we need to hire someone to go through the existing work that's been done, come up with today's recommendations on what that, insulating the envelope, how to heat the building, how to keep the water out of the basement, whether the basement meets code, and if not, what needs to be done. Is the roof still good? Those basic sorts of things. And then with the addition, that's more qualitative, that's more opinion based, that looks good, that doesn't look good. But there are some quantitative things like it'll hold this many people and so on and so forth. So we need an architectural firm that can be conversant in both those disciplines, not one that is just really good at designing new buildings and not one that just does old buildings, but someone who knows how to marry the two and blend them together and be practical. Because what we don't have here is an unlimited budget. We need to be very practical on the interventions we do and don't do. So the first thing I think we should do is find an architectural firm that we feel good about with a proposal that we're willing to pay for. And try to get them on board. I think we'll need a civil engineer early in the process because they don't understand the process as well as some that have been on it for a long time. But I understand there's septic implications, maybe we need a leach field and that might impact where the addition would be. There's been a lot of talk about concerns about parking. How many parking spaces should we or can we add? Is the church an option to use to co-park there and so on? So an architect is going to be not completely confined in the building, but that's kind of where you want to keep them. Their expertise decays when they get out into the site and start talking about site planning a little more. So I think we'll need some help. The good part about that is the structural engineer that did the analysis also does civil engineering and they're local, so I think that's a good opportunity there. So I think we basically for next time, I think we ought to try to get a proposal or more than one proposal from a design firm, an architecture firm. And I don't know that we need a firm proposal from a civil engineering firm, but we ought to kind of have one on call. I think that's probably a pretty good job for next month.
Before we get to that, shouldn't we sit down and by reviewing the documents, agree on what, the former architect helping us called the program, which is essentially the list of rooms, and we know most of them are there, the kids' room, the stack room, and so forth. But just review that list with the space that's gonna be allocated. Now that we're renovating, we know the stack room is gonna be so many feet and so forth. But same thing, reevaluating maybe the square footage for the community room, and if I've not missed any communication, the plan is also to move the municipal offices into Guilford Butler.
That is not something that this facilities committee is going to consider? That's something that may happen in the future, and that would be under their own
Under the town.
monies, not the monies
So
we're
that's
raising
the
now.
big change right there.
No, John Spear had asked the facilities committee to consider that any new building has room for expansion or a way to expand.
But that's the whole point. We need to talk about this for the long run. Because this town, I'm afraid, has a history of making small steps, which then prevent other steps, which would make more sense in the long run. So if the long run is to have the municipal offices on that property, we need to consider that now to make sure there is space for it, and especially given the septic constraint and the leach field and so forth. And again, given the financial effort, I mean, to me, it's ridiculous not to consider moving them.
I think they could easily be contained in one quadrant of the first floor of that building, and Terry felt that way too.
In what?
In one quadrant of the top level could house the town offices needs.
Yeah, so that's all I'm asking, that we consider that to see that's feasible, because right now you're saying that space is being occupied. So, you know, what's gonna come down the line? You're gonna say, oh my God, we're using this, we can't do without it, so.
I think when town office is ready to move, that those,
But at
that
the same
space.
time,
I think there's an answer here that doesn't necessarily mean if somebody's right and someone's wrong. I think that your point is well taken, that if the town is gonna make a major investment in a building, and there are other things that are talked about maybe for the future, it's okay to plan and try not to rule those things out, while at the same time, our primary mission today is not to make sure that's perfect for that use, but maybe not to rule it out, but these decisions you're talking about are exactly the ones that you should be making with your architect at the table, not before you hire one.
but we have to agree among us that yes, it's something to consider.
I think it's easy to consider it, but if you don't have an architect at the table, we're gonna be a bunch of lay people talking around about something we don't know anything about, and the architect will come in and say, I can do this.
So
more
if I can
efficiently."
finish regarding the administrative offices,
Please.
obviously we need to ask the people who are doing the work, like Terry and Hannah. What do they need? What are their requirements to have, you know, what do they need for municipal offices besides space? Do they need separate offices? Do they need, you know, a serving counter? Do they need an outside access? I mean, these things have to be considered.
That's exactly what architects do, that's my point. I'm not saying you're wrong for saying that, I'm saying that is the job of
But
an
I'm saying
architect.
we might save money with an architect if we can discuss this among ourselves first and come to an agreement, so that
You'll
then
end up costing yourself more money in the long run,
Yeah,
by
This
not
is-
involving an architect.
This,
we will involve an architect, but again, it's a question of how much time you want to spend with the architect. Is there a way of minimizing the time you spend with the architect?
Generally, this proposal would probably be a fixed fee, and they're not gonna track hours, so it's gonna be a fixed fee for a fixed scope, so. We're not
Okay,
gonna,
if you're sure of that.
we're not gonna win or lose by, saving 90 minutes on a discussion.
so Kevin, can you continue?
I was done,
Okay,
I don't wanna try to put too much on one agenda, but we did have a sort of we got a little hope there last week to like figure it out. And I wanna try to do everything I can to help it move along without getting ahead of ourselves.
Penny,
done.
I don't know, everybody knows, but we did find, Terry
There.
Baines found the original plans to the building.
Really?
And, we were able to, scan them and, reproduce them digitally. And Terry has a copy of these. There's 13 drawings. It's structural, it's protection drawings, for the building. It details the roof, the steel, the concrete, the
Wow.
plumbing,
Bravo.
Septic.
all that stuff. So Terry found them.
Thank you.
He and I worked together to get old blueprints. Now you can print them in blue. It worked. This will help any discussion, about what can fit here, within this portion of it. And we have greatly simplified the design issues here, by accepting the building, and its deficiencies that we need to correct. And the question is, how much can we fit in there? And will the town offices fit? Can it fit under do we have to do it quietly as a future thing? Because the grants are for, non-town purposes, where they're not for reducing tax base that I can, as I limited understanding of it. So, what happens in the future, we can plan for, but anyway. And, we do have to size an addition, whether it includes the kitchen and the bathroom. Will be a question, but the architects will help us. What use can we make of the basement I do not like drop ceilings. If we get rid of those, upstairs, downstairs, will we have a greater sense of space? So the fun part is, how do we tease good elements out of the existing building that we do it at the least possible cost to the budget, because there will be challenges all the way around just solving the budget. I did speak with someone in the community today about the role that the building might play as a shelter in times of storms. So we're talking about designing, how many cots can we fit in the basement? Do we have sufficient generator capacity to power it if the power goes out? All kinds of questions that we can put to the architects and the early engineering, not to get deep into it, but, so that's enough, but I thank Terry for finding the drawings.
Yeah.
Okay, so. We. Have an idea of where we need to go, Kevin sent out a. So at this point. We are to other business.
Well, I'd like to ask a couple of questions, just.
Sure.
So to make every month count.
Yeah.
I think if we can, I think part of the challenge is gonna be setting ourselves up efficiently for the next month without going to email jail in between. So it's important, I think, to talk about things as much as we can at this meeting, so.
Okay.
It would be a shame to wait 2 months to pick an architect, let's say, when we could maybe review and talk about one, and maybe make a decision next month. So the question is, do we want to look at multiple proposals? Do we want to look at one and say we like it or not, or what's the best way to? What can we bring back to, does anyone have ideas? I mean, I know a bunch of good ones. One in particular that I sent a thing around, but I want to know what would be helpful for the committee to be able to make a decision next month.
I wasn't involved. I went to several meetings with Gabe. I've never talked to Vander Shaw. But I think it's a good idea to start fresh. And I think I would encourage us to rely on recommendations that come from someone who's dealt with a lot of different groups. And it's important to get a team that we all believe in, and who then acknowledges our presence as serious, deliberate, and intending to get somewhere. I'd like to see us with drawings, official drawings and contractor pricing within a year. And
And before maybe.
there's Labor Day, there's Thanksgiving, there's Christmas. There's a lot of interruptions, and we need to make use of the time. Otherwise, it will just go by
Right,
and nothing will happen.
absolutely.
So we have a mandate and, let's use it.
Probably. I would also like to ask, if it was possible, Kevin has assigned us homework, that we all see the same documents. Is that, possible to send that out to us via email or?
Which,
He was asking
well,
for.
the structural analysis and the futures reports are online.
Okay,
I think it'd be helpful for our liaison to the auxiliary committee to obtain from that committee whatever documents they feel will be helpful to us.
okay,
Those are the ones I'm not sure where to.
all right.
And Hannah might be the best.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll speak to both.
But I can send out links to the other two things.
Right, and this way we know that, to me, if we have like one package that we send out in an email, then we know everybody has received that. And feel better about that, and if you haven't done your homework, Kevin will send you to the corner.
Well, it will be links because these are large documents, so I will send you.
Perfect.
So
Could I-
generally, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please.
I'll go last.
I'm gonna need those clothes, so I'm probably gonna start realistically like the week before. Companies recommend.
I have no idea. Paul getting into his car.
I was just gonna to say, as a general principle, would the committee be comfortable reviewing, would you like to see more than one proposal from more than one qualified firm?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
choices are yours, but not too many.
Okay, two, I think three is a lot.
Yes,
But I can do
two.
three, but two maybe?
Let's do two, and then if we don't like either one, then we can go move on from the other.
Okay.
Do you have in mind some of them already?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us? Who they are?
One of them is archetype. I sent that around to, I think, everybody before.
I didn't receive anything.
It came today.
Did you check your email today?
Yes, I was on my computer all day for work.
What's your email address? Let's see.
It's CLB WISER.
You gotta log it in. Are you on the email list with Hannah that talked about? the time of the
I
meeting
had
and all
not
that?
received the original email about asking for the date of the meeting. I had to
Okay.
correct my email.
That's the thread that it was on. So that's why you haven't gotten it, because I just replied all to that thread.
Okay,
So I think it's incumbent probably upon the secretary to curate an email list that has everyone on it, that has correct emails. And then sets up like a distribution so that we can.
Now, Hannah had sent out a,
Microsoft Teams thing.
I don't know how people feel about that.
It's not all one penny.
A link to join the Microsoft team. I'm happier doing things in an email format.
I think if our work gets so complex that we're doing a lot of document sharing, something like that makes more sense, but the level we're at. Presumably going to be at, it seems.
The Microsoft team, I think that carries the danger of having the illegal meetings things. So having, if you want to communicate, having one just email list and just send things through that way.
We've got to get the correct email addresses.
Yeah.
But Hannah said she corrected it in that Microsoft team group, so,
But if he sent it,
yeah.
I'm gonna.
Your name is in there, in mine. As you know.
So I apologize you didn't get the proposal, but the first company I thought of was a company called Archetype Architects. Of the probably 12 or so historic schools I've developed. Archetype, we've been the architect for most of them, 9, 10 of them. They've done a ton of work in that space. So they understand not only historic buildings, but new construction as well. They're a big Portland firm, big for what we've been talking about anyway. So they were my first thought and first choice. If there was a second choice, I would probably say Winton Scott Architects. They're another firm who has done a ton of work on old buildings and new buildings. I lean a little toward archetype just based on the personnel I know that are there, but I think those are two good choices. If there was a third and a fourth choice, Invivid is pretty good, and Ryan Senator is another one who's done a lot of work for me. He's done more new construction than historic though, so those would be the two off the top of my head. Would be Winton Scott Architects and Archetype Architects. They both have websites that you could check out and kind of get a sense of their work.
Are they all in Portland?
Yes. Yeah. Archetype is doing the Project Queen Rock one that's going up now across from the golf course. So my thought was they were already coming up here on a regular basis, so that makes some sense.
Yeah, then this is one example.
Okay, well. They already
You wanna
sent
look them up?
something?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
I'm gonna pass around, sign up sheet for correct emails.
Kevin had sent a link out to Maine Calling, and I listened to that with great interest.
Yep.
I did
Good,
too.
That's very good.
Yeah.
What was that? I didn't understand.
It was
Radio.
old
Sure.
buildings to housing, but basically it was talking specifically about housing, but they did talk a lot about Maine preservation, and I thought that was very interesting. And pointed out that the buildings before 1960.
Can you send that to Catherine?
Well, she can just look it up, go to PB, go to.
Maine Calling,
Maine
Miles
Calling,
Drive.
Maine Calling, look it up. It was really good.
Yeah, because I do feel there are different avenues to reach out for grants and funding, including DNA, Maine preservation, there, you know, it's not just library, it's not just community center. And depending on this position, you know, there might be recreational aspects that we could get grants for, so, but I appreciated the link and I thought it was very interesting.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'd like to suggest that we have at least a couple of focus groups where the public would weigh in on what they see for the basic parameters. I mean, we know the school is there, we know the basement is a wild card, we know that we're addressing an addition. I've heard comments about shelter, community shelter needs, but I'm not really, I think we need input from people. Some early, maybe before we do the architect, and then some after, one or two after the architect comes up with a draft early concept design. Rachel Snow has some experience at doing these. She has volunteered that she would pull one together. We would use the town listserv to notify people. It would probably be an official meeting of this committee. We would listen, and it would probably be at Butler School. Does the committee support that kind of process?
I think as long as there are more avenues to reach the public than just the listserv, that's 300 people.
That's a problem.
And there's half the group I think we need to talk to is not going to be on that email list.
Rachel was well aware of that. She said, we need young, we need old, middle, we need families. And I wasn't sure how she was gonna promote that, but,
You can put announcements in the paper, you know.
yeah, okay.
No, I don't think the paper is that great of a, I'm
It's just
talking
another venue. Obviously, you need a multi-pronged approach for communication and every little bit, you know, will bring people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We did a survey, what, a couple of years ago, asking everybody what they wanted. How did we get that distributed? I can't even remember.
by the listener.
Listen,
By the listserv, okay.
and then whoever came into the library.
Right, yeah.
There was, I remember the meeting at the Spruce Head Community Center, which I don't think the committee at that point got as much feedback as they really wanted for whatever reason. And our job, I think, is really to outline what the building can be, the spaces that are there. And other people are gonna have to weigh in on what they want to, how they want to see it used, and we can, and the architect would potentially modify the plans, or the engineering would be modified to address particular needs that come up, but
Incorporate might be a better word.
say again.
Incorporate,
Okay.
sorry.
Words are important, and it's not easy to get them all right, but.
Right, yeah.
If I learned one thing from watching the process, the kind of the tail end of the old process, it's that communication. One breakdown in town here and people are at each other's throats, or it's because of communication, and so, I think the community, all the meetings have always been open to everybody, but that arguably that never went far enough, and so the communication, no matter how many channels, I think you're right, we have to do multiple channels, have a listserv, maybe add in the paper, different things, those are all sort of passive things, like we throw it out there, and if you don't respond, it's on you. Well, that logic is kind of logically true, but it doesn't work when people are mad and don't go to the meeting and then they show up. So I think we have to do some sort of active communication, active outreach, and pull people in and bring people in and make sure we have a big tent and say, no, you're gonna come tell us what you think now, because we don't, we don't wanna have plausible deniability later when we're trying to build true consensus and kind of heal this thing back together, that people say they weren't heard on any aspect of it. They might not.
I mean,
think they
something
want.
as silly as a, sandwich board, saying go pick up, correct report on where we stand, so that, if you tell people there is information available and everybody drives in town, so if we face.
They don't,
Yeah.
Well,
unfortunately.
you have a lot of people coming to the school, so you can have distribution of material there for the people who don't use the computer. Then you do the same thing for the historical society, which are gathering places. And then the main intersection going to Spruce Head, and the intersection on the Dublin side, on the 131 side. I mean, you have the town is not that big, so the main entry points around the town, if you can post something to say there is information available about where we are at or what we're doing, and at least make it known that there is something to be learned. And
What about the bulk mailing that we did? We sent everything out to everyone. And
how much did that cost?
it wasn't bad, about 160.
That's all?
Yeah, well, because we did everything.
Yeah.
It was
We do
just
everything.
the postage. We did everything at the school. We bought the paper, wrote it up, copied it. So that wasn't that bad. So as far as cost wise.
I thought the cost would be higher, so.
Yeah, well, because it was donated through people. And
I think the problem here is the timeline. If we're going to try to act this quickly, this would have to happen.
In August and September.
Yes.
Well, we have a fair idea of what the rooms are going to be, what they can use for, and again, we have good imagination, so if you have a large multi-purpose room you know, and you list some of those purposes so that people can see, yes, you know, I'd love to do that and it can be done there. So that you gain already somebody, you know's approval, yes, that's the kind they can, you know, vote for. And, you know, of the ideas, I mean, again, I don't want us to be shackled as we start. It's like the multipurpose room has to be large enough to have the town meeting that we now know needs to count over 200 people. And then, you know, to have it for musical performances where, you know, you can have as many seats as possible and so forth, can be subdivided to have exercise, you know, on one class, yoga or whatever, and then the still meeting on the other side. Some people mention even, you know, winter playing hoop basketball, so it's like, could you have a half court in there, just, you know, installing a basketball, you know, net doesn't seem something so difficult. And so all these ideas, and in essentially, it's all within the same box, you know, so.
Amen.
But if we get everybody together, the thing is to get everybody
Yes,
aware, come together, and then let them tell us.
I think before we're ready to communicate out, we need to consolidate and communicate
Yes.
inward, because generally when I've done these types of exercises, there's. You know, we can't have someone come in and say, we don't want a library and a community center, we want you to do a farm out back, we wanna sell produce and produce stand, and that's what I want. What we wanna do is define the musts that we're gonna be part of any plan, and we kind of all know what those are. And say, but what do you think about other ideas, what do you think about this piece of it, and sort of. Not limit public participation, but direct it toward the things that are optional.
Exactly.
We're not allowed to solicit public participation that tells us to do something other than our
Yes.
mission.
Right.
So I think it's important that we kind of get up and running and get comfortable with who we are and what we think, and then say, okay, here's kind of where we think we are. What do you think? What are we missing? What opportunities have we not thought of?
and it goes both ways. I mean, like, if you leave an open questions, people will stay blind. But if you start putting a suggestion, then it sparks reactions. And again, you know, we need to contain the reactions. We're not open to, again, creating, you know, everything. These are the parameters of what we're working with.
Exactly, and that's crucial, because otherwise we're just here and we're getting things all over the place and nothing will be accomplished, so yes.
So we talked about three things tonight. We talked about project management, which is the architects and all that stuff. We've talked about communication and PR and public feedback. We talked about raising money. So I'm wondering if maybe a good way to start each monthly agenda is to hit those three things and say, okay, where are we on our PR communications plan? Where are we on our fundraising plan? Where are we on our, those things, as John pointed out, those things have to nest within each other if we're gonna move along efficiently to get where we need to be. So I think that also might help you, Penny, from having every agenda be a free-for-all you create from scratch, and then maybe you can add on to that skeleton, but if every month we hit that. That might, and maybe there's something I forgot, but that'll be good discipline.
I think that's excellent, so.
Sorry, John, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, Rachel Snow, is a broad thinker. But what I told her was that we would provide the shell, and it was up to her to get the input as to how to use the shell, whether it's for the town office or for volleyball or whatever. She can guide us on any modulations that need to happen if we're going to provide for volleyball, for example, or basketball. And the garage is maybe an optional place to do something like that as a higher ceiling. But I know Paul DiMaggio is thinking about higher ceilings in the meeting room addition. I don't know the cost parameters for adding height. You basically buy a roof and a floor is what is the additional increment. So anyway, the architect will guide us.
So with your thought with Rachel Snow, would she run the?
She says that she's willing to do that for multiple different groups. What she wanted from me was, she said, well, what's the budget? I said, it's a big budget, but it will always be challenged. whatever we add is a challenge to address. So she wanted a basic parameter, what is the budget going to allow us to do?
We don't know that yet. That's not a question we can answer.
Well,
Chicken and egg.
I think the valuable thing about Rachel's work will be establishing an order of priority for the optional things, like what's more important, volleyball or yoga or whatever someone else said. And if there's one thing that 60% of the people want, then that's the first thing we ought to try to buy once we've fulfilled the basic core, you know, but we need insulation, heating, water prevention, and in addition, before we worry about, well, now playing volleyball.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, it's just those sports activity, what they imply is the floor, essentially. What kind of floor are you gonna have in a row?
But that's down the road.
Yeah, but that's the key, yes,
Yeah,
I mean, there's what's his name, Herb, the guy?
yeah.
He's gone, but his point was, building's too expensive, they're running old, and that's not gonna work, and I think we have to, and he's not the only one probably that thinks that, I think we have a proof of concept that the old building can be run before we worry about doing all kinds of crazy new things in it that will be awesome. We have the basic concept of, can it be insulated? Okay, how? Someone said at a meeting, it can't be insulated. Well, it can, but at what cost? You know, is the roof good still? I think we need to know that stuff before we, so I think the programming comes when we have an architect. I think the Rachel Snow meeting is probably in the fall. I think we need a month or two to do a little work before we're ready to open up to the world.
That's a good idea.
So. Speaking of our next meeting. Right,
I would like to suggest that we move this meeting to the library facility, library community, library, whatever it is, over there, to the library.
Sounds as cool.
It is cooler than this. I think we'll get more people there. That, I mean, that was one of my, in my humble opinion, that was one of the big problems in holding all the meetings here, is nobody came because they didn't want to come here. But they will come to the library.
I second what Maureen is saying.
And if we're talking about a specific thing, we can say, let's go look at it.
That's right.
It's down the hall.
Yes.
You know,
I mean, whenever I did a library, I mean, I always held it at the library. Why would you not?
yeah.
the library has an owl.
Yeah.
And dedicated laptop, and we do run Zoom meetings there already for Knox Climate, Community Resilience Committee. We've done it for the Conservation Commission, we do it for HOAs and.
Health planning. Yep.
That's not a problem at all to run the meeting there, and we have a room. Big enough.
Do we need to vote on that?
To vote yes.
I vote yes.
Oh, yes, that's fine.
Somebody's supposed to.
Well, it looks like there's no issue with the location, so. What we need is a date. Thursday nights are out. Wednesday nights. Well.
You tell us. You're busy.
Wednesday night, I mean, once a month I have. The book club in there, like the first Wednesday of the month is book club, is using the owl and everything.
What's the good date for you?
It's not so much the day of the week, it's more the week of the month. So we talking end of August. Okay. I'm back. 24th, so that whole week of the 26th, the closer it gets to the first day of school, the weirder it gets. So anytime during that week, 26, 7, 8, 9, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I can drive up here. So whatever kind of works for
What
you.
about a Monday?
Is the lobster pound closed on Monday?
We get them at the gig store, so. it's-
Actually, there's yoga on Monday evenings,
But that prevents us.
well, they're using the room, so, I mean,
Well, how about the Tuesday, the 27th?
I can do that.
I don't know what the select board meetings are, but.
Oh,
that
we
should
don't
work,
Have to be
Yeah.
no,
in concert.
27th August.
and what time? would you like to have these, Kevin? You have to come the farthest.
You wanna do it at 6?
I mean, 5:30 is fine, it gets me home half an hour sooner, but 6 is also okay, I don't have a strong preference.
I prefer 5:30, but
5:30.
It works.
I'll get that in my head. It's 6 o'clock.
I have one question before we adjourn. So we leave here tonight. What are we supposed to be doing?
read the documents.
Read the documents.
You know, engineering analysis, the report from the library facilities committee that came up, you know, with the program, pictures and stuff. And then,
Be more informed for the
yeah,
next meeting.
Now, was it the facilities committee or the futures committee report?
I read everything that was online, so. I don't think there's a bad report to read, I don't think there's anything you shouldn't read. I mean, I read all the monthly minutes, you know, they're short, so. I think the more we read, the more we'll understand the history and be able to move forward.
We have the minutes going back through 2022. Oh, I believe online, although they're not a tremendous number each year. And as a new member, although I just started looking today, it does give you a sense of how things developed. And
Yeah.
it's
I read them all.
starting to give me a context about what happened, why it happened, and how we can prevent it from happening again.
Yeah,
I have a question about this communication process. I mean, if there's a proposal that comes in from an architect or for a focus group or whatever, is it kosher for one person to send that information to
the group.
the entire group?
I think so. I think that's here, this is for your consideration. We will take action or
On the future.
consider.
Yeah,
Maybe
just
as long as
in
there is
public.
a response to it, you know, like you just send out the information and everybody can read
Nobody
it on their own.
responds.
Yeah.
we
But there
should
is
copy,
no
just copy
clear
him.
Information.
Copy hand.
And copy
Yeah,
him?
and certainly you can respond if you have any questions or, you know, we're just not going to make decisions through email.
Right,
So would you also like 2 proposals from a civil engineer?
It's easy for you to get them to us there if you have to.
You feel that we should use Gabe?
He's not a civil.
Not Gabe,
Shortly endorsed.
Civil engineers are a little bit of a different animal, their work is more technical and it's slightly better to have a more local one because they understand the local codes and, you know, they're gonna be coming out more, and so it's a little better to have a local. I'm happy to get 2 proposals for them as well. It's also, I don't know if we know exactly what we wanna. Basic property due diligence that we would normally buy. I haven't seen a survey yet. Did anybody ever, the one is there?
There's a legal description which is very concise and we could ask that it be drawn out. It's an enormous site. It's 266 feet
We
deep.
do have a survey?
Gilbert Butler?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a survey.
That, you know?
Wow, thank you.
But I could go look for it.
Is it super old or is it relatively recent?
It's old. I think it's school that, I mean, I don't know how old it is.
Okay, so is it hand drawn or is it electronic?
I'll go look for it.
Okay, cause that's a, you know, that's material I'm asking because they might still have the file and they can update it more cheaply than a firm could produce it de novo, so that might be a thought. I guess I don't think civil engineering is as much of a beauty contest where it's like, I like this one, oh, I like this one. It's like, can they do the job? Is their price affordable? And so I'm happy to dig into that a little more if you'd like, or we can get one to react to and see if we want to get more. It's whatever you'd like to do.
I'm sort of torn between that, but getting some specific infrastructure here with us first, and then looking maybe September for that would be my suggestion.
Candace, I'm not actually following. I mean,
It's too abstract.
no, I just, it's important to gather information. We can make decisions about things later, but we should not delay
right.
putting information in front of us.
Yeah, listen,
The architect.
I'm not saying that we must choose one next month.
No, I understand that, I understand that, I just thought that there was too many, I was feeling there were too many questions on the table about, okay, how is this gonna happen, how is that gonna happen, we're gonna be having Rachel Snow's information and et cetera, so. Just, I'm voicing my.
Yeah, I think that the review of architectural proposals in my mind comes like at the end of next meeting,
Okay.
after we've talked again and talked about strategy and how we wanna roll this thing out and say, okay, you've had a chance to read these things over the last month, they've been in your email for a couple weeks now. How do you feel about it? Feel like they're missing pieces? Is it obvious what you wanna do, or is it not obvious? And it may be that we're absolutely all ready, or it may be that we aren't. It's probably not gonna be this, probably not gonna be 50-50. We're probably all kinda be ready, or all kinda not be.
Yeah,
So,
all right, so I defer to your expertise.
I think it'd be good to have the information if we wanna act on it. And maybe we do, maybe we don't.
Thank you.
Right.
Question? Sandra?
I understood you to say that when it comes to having a civil engineer, it would be good to have somebody local. Yada yada, because they know the area and the codes and so on. And I'm wondering why it wouldn't also be useful to have local architects instead of, I gather you're only looking into architects based in Portland.
Generally, building codes are less variable community to community. And land use ordinances are very specific to each town. So if you hire a local engineering firm, there's a pretty good chance they've worked in the town before and they've worked with the ordinances and they know kind of a clear path through working with the code enforcement officer. With a building, the town will adopt, maybe they adopt MUBEC, or maybe they adopt a different, they'll adopt a set of codes. Whether it be IBC, 2021 or MUBEC or whatever the code is. All the architects know all the codes, so it's less municipality and area specific than engineering is, just by the nature of the discipline.
Yeah, that's not the answer. The answer is, why aren't you looking at local architect?
I don't know the local architect that has a breadth and depth of experience around a lot of historic buildings and new construction together. Not
That's key right there.
Yeah. We worked with 3 architects building our house. Because there's not a lot of really great architects locally, like from my experience. So I think we defer.
Well, I'm not married to any one of them, but Xander Shaw has been one doing a lot of local work with schools in particular. So, I think it would be just fair to ask him to throw his hat in. And then in Belfast, there is obviously Opal, and they do renovations and they focus on green building. So that's an expertise that's definitely.
Catherine, who is the Belfast one?
Opal, OPAL,
Okay.
Opal Construction, Opal Design.
I think there's something to the clean slate thing personally, it's my opinion.
I agree.
I'm fine, I'm not really to Xander at all.
We're just starting fresh.
Yeah, I think we need to.
Yep, it's a good thing.
So no one had an issue with the 27th that I heard. So we'll plan August 27th at 5:30 at GBC. Tuesday, we'll get an agenda out the previous week to be sent to the listserv and posted in all the appropriate places. There anything that we need to talk about before we adjourn?
Are you gonna distribute those to us?
Yes, I have digital records. Kevin, were you able to?
Yeah, the second email you sent,
There is a digital record of the current plans and I will send it to Terry, who will make it available to anybody. Well, I'll send it to the community members.
I just want, John, you're not on the committee yet.
I am.
You didn't get sworn in.
I was sworn in. Hannah asked me if I was, she wanted to swear me in.
Wait, in the
twice.
hallway?
No, right here.
Right here.
Oh, I missed it, okay, all right.
They're on the plans that I was sworn in at the town office.
All right.
I think I was the first one, Kip.
I was.
Oh, okay.
Whoa.
Okay. I just want to make sure you really go.
No, I'm legal.
And no discussions out in the parking lot, claimed it.
Okay, sure. Goodbye. Maura, I'd like to know if you have any questions. You were, if you have any thoughts, if you want to share anything, if not, it's okay.
I'll send it right now.
I think you should read the minutes because there is the history and a lot of, and you should look at Gabe's plans. Because we did discuss having but at that time it was a new building, but a shelter and making sure we had all the different things that were needed for an emergency shelter. I talked to Betty about that. And so there is that information on the spreadsheet, which is important, but obviously it was for something else, but it does have things, even having EV chargers in front of the library, community center. And we all, so it is the history. And it does have all the different pictures and different things that were going on. Obviously, the new mission is different in the sense you're using the existing building, but some of that can be put into the existing
I
building.
agree.
And it's important, and that's what minutes are. As Michael said, it is a history of the event of what goes on. And I think all of the materials that you're asking to review, the original members were all were told to, and given copies of, we had the Futures Committee report, we had the engineering report. We had all that information that we had as background, plus that was all given to the new people that went on to the auxiliary. We had a whole pamphlet with everything, with also Zoom, what Zoom rules were, what rules were for all the different public meetings. So all of that stuff is there.
We've been given the homework. assignment.
Yes, so it is all there in different, in one package. So I think that's important. I also think that, some of your discussions are discussions that were a long time ago. I understand you want to start fresh, but to Xander Shaw, he did the Isabel Stewart Museum in Boston, which is a historical building, and he's done AIO and then school. He has done historical and new, and he is local. I don't think it would hurt to talk to him. He might not be your choice, but at least you contacted someone local and the rest being the others. I think that's a good just shake to say, hey, we talked to someone local because people want to see local people use. Doesn't mean you have to pick them.
I wrote it down.
Perfect.
We done?
Thank you, Moira.
Did you find the survey?
I can't find the big folded one up. at the
But
top
that's
of my head,
it,
but
that's
this is-
it.
Yeah, this is tiny, but I will look for the
Look
bigger
at
one.
it has a name on it.
Yeah, I don't see a name of who did it, but I'll let someone with better eyes than me look at it.
Is there a date on it as well?
Probably. This was
I don't do my glasses, but I don't know.
F.E. Beal from 1997.
Oh,
You would, Bill, he's a well-known surveyor.
He's my uncle.
Oh.
He did my property.
Okay,
So he's still around.
Commission too.
okay,
Just finished the.
he's hired.
Okay.
Price.
The booklet, I mean,
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Send that around.
Um,